The Lifeguards Choice. Emma was a lifeguard at a busy beach. She had always loved the ocean and the feeling of the sun on her skin. Her job was important, and she knew it. Every day, she watched over the swimmers, ready to help anyone in need. Today, the beach was crowded with people enjoying the warm summer weather. Emma kept her eyes on the waves, scanning for any signs of trouble. Suddenly, she noticed a man waving his arms in the water. He was far from the shore, and it was clear he was struggling. Without a second thought, Emma grabbed her rescue board and started running toward the water. But just as she reached the edge of the waves, she heard a scream. Emma turned her head and saw a child caught in a rip current, being pulled further out to sea. The child's small arms were flailing, and panic filled the air. Emma felt her heart race. She had to make a choice: save the drowning man or rescue the child. For a brief moment, time seemed to stand still. Emma knew she couldn't save both at the same time. She had to decide quickly. Her training kicked in, and she remembered that children were more at risk in the water. Emma made her decision. She would go for the child. Pushing her board into the waves, she paddled hard. Her arms moved fast, her muscles burning as she battled the current. She kept her eyes on the child, who was now crying out, "Help! Help!" Emma's heart pounded in her chest, but she stayed focused. She reached the child just in time. The young boy looked terrified, his face pale and his eyes wide with fear. "It's okay, I've got you," Emma said, her voice calm and steady. She grabbed the boy and pulled him onto her board, making sure he was safe and secure. "Hold on tight," she told him. The boy nodded, tears streaming down his face, but Emma smiled at him to offer some comfort. She turned the board around and began to paddle back to the shore. The waves were rough, and the current was strong, but Emma knew she had to stay calm. She was determined to get the boy to safety. As she paddled, she kept glancing back at the man she had seen before. He was still struggling, but he was closer to a group of swimmers now. Emma hoped that someone would notice him and help. When they finally reached the shore, people rushed forward to take the boy from Emma's arms. A woman, who looked like the boy's mother, cried out and hugged him tightly. Thank you so much," she said, tears in her eyes. Emma felt a wave of relief. The child was safe, but there was no time to rest. Emma looked back at the sea. The man was still out there, still fighting the waves. She quickly turned to a fellow lifeguard. "There's a man out there," she said urgently. "I'm going back." Her colleague nodded and joined her. Together, they ran back to the water, Emma leading the way. She pushed her board into the waves once again, her muscles aching but her mind clear. She paddled out with all her strength, and soon she saw the man's head above the water. "Hang on, we're coming!" Emma shouted. The man was gasping for air, but he seemed to hear her. She reached him and grabbed his arm. "I've got you," she assured him. With the help of her colleague, they lifted the man onto the board. He was exhausted but alive. As they paddled back to shore, Emma could feel the man's breathing steadying. "You're safe now," she whispered, feeling a sense of relief wash over her. Her arms were tired, her body was sore, but she knew she had made the right choice. When they reached the shore, people cheered. The man sat up, breathing heavily, but clearly grateful. He looked at Emma and said, "Thank you, you saved me." Emma nodded, smiling, but before she could reply, the woman who had hugged the boy earlier came running over. "Dad!" she cried, throwing her arms around the man. Emma watched as the family embraced, realizing the man she had saved was the boy's father. The man turned to Emma, tears in his eyes. "You saved my son first," he said, his voice breaking. "I will never forget this. Thank you so much." Emma felt her heart swell. She had made a difficult decision, one that could have gone very differently. But now, seeing the father and son reunited, she knew she had done the right thing. She had saved 2 lives, and both were grateful. The Scientist's Choice. Dr. Emily Carter was a brilliant scientist. She spent most of her days in the lab, working hard and studying different types of bacteria. She loved her work. Her lab was filled with machines that hummed and buzzed, making sounds that were like music to her ears. One day, while looking at samples under a microscope, she noticed something strange. It was a bacteria that no one had ever seen before. Emily was excited. She took a deep breath and decided to study it more. She spent days, then weeks, learning everything she could about this new bacteria. As she worked, she started to see that this was not just any bacteria. It had the power to change things, and not in a good way. It could spread quickly and make people very sick. It was something that the world needed to know about. But there was a problem. If Emily told the world about the bacteria, it could cause a panic. People might be scared. They might not know what to do. But if she kept it secret, the bacteria could spread, and no one would be ready for it. She felt like she was standing at a crossroads, and she didn't know which way to turn. For days, Emily couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about what to do. Should she tell the world, even if it caused fear and worry? Or should she keep it to herself, hoping that she could find a way to stop it before it became a problem? She felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. Every morning, she walked to the lab, hoping that the answer would somehow become clear to her. Finally, one night, she made a decision. She would tell the world about the bacteria. She believed that people deserved to know, even if it caused fear. She knew that the truth was important, and hiding it could make things worse. She decided to hold a press conference to announce her discovery. The next day, the room was full of reporters, all waiting to hear what Dr. Carter had to say. Emily stood in front of them, feeling her heart beat fast. She knew that this was the most important moment of her life. "I have made a discovery," she began. Her voice was strong, but she could feel her hands shaking. "It is a new kind of bacteria. It is dangerous and can spread quickly. We must act now to stop it." The room went silent for a moment. Then, the reporters started asking questions all at once. "How dangerous is it? Can we stop it? What should people do?" Emily answered as best she could. She explained that the bacteria could be stopped if everyone worked together. She told them that scientists all over the world would need to study it and find a way to prevent it from spreading. She asked people not to panic, but to be careful and listen to the advice of experts. But despite her calm words, the news spread fast. The next morning, it was on every TV channel, in every newspaper, and all over the internet. People started to panic. They rushed to stores to buy masks and medicines. They stayed in their homes and avoided contact with others. Some people even stopped going to work or school. It seemed like everyone was afraid. Emily watched all of this from her small office at the lab. She felt sad and worried. Had she done the right thing? She knew she had to trust that the truth would help in the end. As days passed, the situation seemed to get worse. People were scared, and they blamed her for causing the panic. She received angry messages and calls from strangers. She felt alone and afraid. But then, something unexpected happened. Scientists from all over the world started to work together. They shared their knowledge and resources. They started to learn more about the bacteria, and they quickly found a way to slow it down. Doctors found treatments that helped people who were infected. Slowly, things started to get better. The panic began to calm, and people started to feel safe again. One day, a journalist came to Emily and asked, "How did you know that telling the world would help?" Emily smiled, even though she felt tired. "I didn't know for sure," she said, "but I knew that hiding the truth would be worse. People need to know what's happening to make the right choices." Then, the journalist asked, "Some people think you wanted this panic. They think you wanted to scare people on purpose. Is that true?" Emily thought for a moment and then nodded. "Yes," she admitted. "I wanted people to be scared, but not in a bad way. I wanted them to be alert and aware of the danger. If no one was afraid, no one would act quickly. We needed everyone's attention to solve the problem. And it worked." The journalist was surprised. "So, the panic was part of your plan?" Emily nodded again. "Yes. Sometimes people need to be a little afraid to take action, but it was never about fear for fear's sake. It was about making sure everyone understood how serious the situation was. The news spread again, but this time it was different. People started to understand that Emily had made a hard choice, but it was the right one. They saw that her goal had always been to protect them and find a solution. Soon, Emily received messages of thanks and support. People understood her plan and saw her as a hero who had saved many lives. She felt relief and a sense of peace. She had faced a difficult choice, but she had trusted her instincts. In the end, the panic she caused had helped save the world. Emily looked out of her office window at the busy city below. She knew that life would go on, but she also knew that the world was a little safer because she had been brave enough to tell the truth, no matter the cost. And that was the most important thing of all. A chance for change. One cold evening, Mark sat on a bench in the city park. He had been homeless for over a year now. His clothes were old and torn, and his hands were cold. The wind blew against his face, and he shivered. He looked at the people walking by, busy with their own lives, not noticing him. In his pocket, Mark had only $10 left. He knew he needed to buy food, but he felt so tired of his life. Every day was the same, searching for food, looking for a warm place to sleep, and hoping for something to change. He thought about using his last $10 to buy a hot meal, but then he saw a small shop across the street with a sign that said, "Lottery tickets, $10. Mark stopped for a moment and stared at the sign. A lottery ticket! It was a crazy idea, but he began to think. If he bought food, he would eat once, and that would be it. But if he bought a lottery ticket, there was a chance, just a small chance, that he could win something more. He could change his life. He stood up slowly, crossed the street, and went into the shop. The shop was warm inside, and he felt a bit of comfort in the heat. The man at the counter smiled at him. "Can I help you?" the man asked. Mark hesitated for a moment, feeling the money in his pocket. "I'd like a lottery ticket," he said finally. The man handed him a ticket. "Good luck," he said kindly. Mark walked out of the shop with the ticket in his hand. He looked at it for a long time, thinking about what he had done. He sat back down on the bench and waited. The lottery numbers would be announced in just an hour. He decided to stay and see if he had made the right choice. An hour felt like a lifetime. Mark's stomach growled with hunger, but he tried to ignore it. Then, a voice came from a nearby radio in the park. It was time for the lottery draw. Mark listened carefully, holding his breath. The first number was announced, and it matched the first number on his ticket. His heart beat faster. The second number was also a match. Could this be real, he wondered? One by one, the numbers were called, and each one matched the numbers on Mark's ticket. He had won. But it was not the big prize. It was a small win, only $500. Still, for Mark, it was a lot of money. Mark smiled for the first time in months. He felt a spark of hope. He could buy food for weeks, maybe even find a place to sleep indoors for a few nights. But more importantly, he felt lucky, and that feeling gave him strength. He decided to use the money wisely. He went to a small cafe and ordered a meal. It was warm and delicious, the best food he had tasted in a long time. After eating, he went to a thrift store and bought some clean clothes and a pair of shoes. He also bought a blanket to keep him warm at night. The next day, Mark returned to the same cafe. He noticed a sign in the window, "Help Wanted." He thought for a moment and decided to ask. He went inside and spoke to the owner, a middle-aged woman named Anna. "Excuse me," Mark said nervously. "I saw your sign. Are you still looking for help?" Anna looked at him kindly. "Yes, we need someone to help clean and wash dishes," she said. "Do you have any experience?" Mark nodded. "I can work hard. I just need a chance," he replied. Anna thought for a moment and then smiled. "Okay," she said. "You can start today. It won't pay much, but it's honest work." Mark felt a wave of relief. "Thank you," he said, almost in tears. He began working that day, and he worked hard. He washed dishes, cleaned tables, and did everything he was asked to do. The other workers were kind, and soon, Mark felt like he belonged. Over the next few weeks, Mark saved his money. He continued to sleep in the shelter at night, but used some of his winnings to buy good meals and take care of himself. Slowly, his life began to change. He felt stronger and more hopeful each day. One day, while he was cleaning the cafe, a customer noticed how hard he was working. This customer was the owner of a small company and was looking for someone who could help with deliveries. He approached Mark and said, "I've seen how you work here. Would you like to come and work for me? It would be a steady job with better pay." Mark's eyes filled with tears of joy. "Yes, yes, I would like that very much," he answered. The man smiled and gave him his card. "Come by tomorrow and we'll talk," he said. That night, Mark felt thankful. He had made a risky decision with his last $10, and it had changed everything. The small win on the lottery ticket had led him to a job, and now another opportunity was waiting for him. Mark knew that life would not always be easy, but he felt ready to face it. He had learned that sometimes even a small chance can lead to something big. And from that day on, he always believed in the power of hope and the courage to take a chance. Mark's life slowly turned around. He worked hard, saved his money, and stayed positive. He was no longer the man sitting on the park bench, wondering what to do. He was someone who had found a way back, step by step, day by day. And all because he chose to take a chance on a single lottery ticket. In the end, the small win had led to a new beginning, a chance for change. The concert that changed everything. Liam was a young musician with a big dream. He loved playing the guitar and singing, and he had worked hard to get where he was. After years of practice, playing in small clubs and cafes, he finally got his big break, a chance to perform at a well-known music festival in his city. It was the kind of opportunity that could change his career forever. But there was a problem. Just 2 days before the concert, Liam woke up with a scratchy throat and a stuffy nose. His head felt heavy, and he knew he was coming down with a cold. He tried to ignore it, telling himself that it was nothing serious. However, by the evening, his voice was hoarse, and he started to cough. Liam sat in his small apartment, looking at his guitar. His manager, Tina, called him to discuss the final preparations for the festival. "Liam, are you ready for the big day?" Tina asked with excitement in her voice. Liam hesitated for a moment. "Tina, I have a bit of a cold," he said, trying to sound calm. "I don't know if I can perform well." There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then Tina said, "Oh no, that's bad timing. But listen, you've been waiting for this moment for so long. Are you sure you can't do it?" Liam thought about it. The festival was important. If he canceled, he might not get another chance like this. But if he played, and his voice was terrible, it could ruin his reputation. "I'll think about it," Liam replied. That night, Liam couldn't sleep. He tossed and turned in his bed, thinking about what to do. He knew he had to make a choice. Should he play the concert, even though he was sick? Or should he cancel and hope for another chance in the future? The next morning, Liam woke up feeling worse. His nose was blocked, and his throat hurt when he tried to speak. But he also felt a fire burning inside him. He decided he couldn't let this chance slip away. He would perform, no matter what. "I'll do it," Liam told Tina when he called her back. "I'll play the concert." Tina was relieved, but also worried. "Okay, Liam, but take care of yourself. Drink lots of water and rest your voice as much as you can." The day of the concert arrived, and Liam felt nervous. His cold had not improved, and his voice was still hoarse. He drank tea with honey, did his best to rest, and warmed up his voice carefully. He knew that his body wasn't in the best condition, but his spirit was strong. He arrived at the festival and saw the large crowd gathering in front of the stage. As he waited backstage, he could hear the sound of the audience. People were cheering and clapping for the other performers. He took a deep breath and tried to calm himself. "You've got this, Liam," he whispered to himself. When it was finally his turn, Liam walked onto the stage with his guitar in hand. The lights were bright, and the crowd looked huge. He could feel his heart pounding in his chest. He stepped up to the microphone, took a deep breath, and began to play. At first, things didn't go well. Liam's voice was shaky, and he struggled to hit the right notes. His cold made it hard for him to sing as he usually did. He could see some people in the audience whispering to each other, and his confidence began to waver. But then something happened. As he played, Liam started to feel the music take over. He closed his eyes and let his fingers move across the strings. He forgot about his cold, the audience, and everything else. He just played from his heart, pouring all his emotions into the song. His voice might have been rough, but it was full of feeling. The audience could see how hard he was trying, and they began to cheer him on. As he finished the first song, the crowd clapped loudly. Liam felt a rush of energy. He smiled, realizing that they were with him, supporting him. He continued to play, and with each song, he felt better. The music flowed through him, and the audience responded with enthusiasm. By the end of his set, he was singing with all his might, his voice raw but powerful. When he played the final chord, the crowd erupted into applause. Liam stood there, breathing heavily, feeling a mix of exhaustion and joy. He had done it. He had played the concert despite his cold, and the audience loved it. After the show, Liam went backstage, feeling both tired and relieved. Tina rushed over to him, beaming with excitement. "You were amazing, Liam! I can't believe you did it!" Liam smiled, wiping the sweat from his forehead. "Thanks, Tina. I didn't think I could, but the crowd gave me so much energy." Then Tina's phone buzzed. She looked at it and gasped. "Liam, look at this," she said, holding her phone up to show him. Someone in the audience had recorded a video of his performance and uploaded it online. It was already getting thousands of views and comments. Liam watched in disbelief as the numbers climbed higher and higher. People were sharing the video, talking about how brave and passionate he was to perform despite being sick. His raw voice, filled with emotion, had touched many hearts. Within hours, the video went viral. Messages started pouring in from all over the world. People were praising him for his courage and saying how much they loved his unique performance. News websites were sharing the video, and Liam's social media pages were flooded with new followers. Liam couldn't believe what was happening. His decision to play the concert, even while sick, had turned out to be the best choice he had ever made. The performance that he thought might ruin his career had instead made him famous. In the days that followed, Liam received calls from music producers, radio stations, and even TV shows. Everyone wanted to know more about the brave young musician who had won the hearts of so many people. Liam learned an important lesson that day. Sometimes taking a risk and following your heart can lead to unexpected and wonderful results. He knew he had a long way to go, but now he was more determined than ever to keep playing his music and sharing it with the world. As he picked up his guitar again, he smiled, knowing that this was only the beginning of his journey. The Photographer's Choice. Alex was a young and passionate photographer, always in search of the perfect shot. He had worked hard to build his reputation, capturing moments that spoke to people's hearts. One day, Alex was invited to an important event in the city, a charity gala attended by celebrities, politicians, and other notable figures. This was a great opportunity for Alex to make a name for himself. He hoped to take some memorable photos that could be featured in popular magazines. As the evening went on, Alex moved quietly through the crowd, taking pictures of people laughing, dancing, and enjoying the night. He was careful to capture the right moments, the smiles, the conversations, the beauty of the evening. His camera was his best friend, and he felt the energy of the event through his lens. After a while, Alex noticed a well-known politician, Mr. Harrison, standing in a quiet corner, away from the crowd. He was speaking to a woman in a low voice, looking around nervously, Alex's curiosity was piqued. He knew Mr. Harrison was a man of great influence, and any photo of him would be valuable. Slowly, Alex positioned himself, ready to take a picture. He waited for the right moment, and then, click! He captured a photo of Mr. Harrison with a shocked expression on his face, his hand reaching for the woman's arm. Alex quickly reviewed the photo on his camera. The image was perfect, but it showed something unexpected. The woman was not Mr. Harrison's wife. She was someone completely unknown. The two of them looked like they were arguing, and the expression on their faces suggested something serious. The photo was explosive. If published, it could become a huge story, potentially causing a scandal for Mr. Harrison. Alex knew this could be his big break, a chance to make headlines and earn significant money. But as he stared at the image, a feeling of doubt crept in. Was it right to publish this photo? Alex spent the entire night thinking about what to do. He knew the picture would attract a lot of attention. If he sold it to a newspaper or magazine, he could finally gain the recognition he had been working for all these years. But something inside him hesitated. The photo was personal and showed Mr. Harrison in a compromising situation. What if the woman in the picture was in trouble, or the photo caused harm to people who didn't deserve it? Alex's heart was heavy. He remembered why he started taking photos in the first place. It wasn't to create scandals or invade people's privacy. He loved photography because it allowed him to capture the beauty of life, to tell stories that mattered, and to show the world from a different perspective. But if he didn't publish the photo, he would miss a big opportunity. Other photographers wouldn't hesitate. They would sell it in a heartbeat. The thought made him uneasy. His hands shook a little as he held his camera, knowing he had to make a choice. Finally, after much thought, Alex decided not to publish the photo. He knew it could make him famous, but he also knew it was not the right thing to do. He wanted to respect Mr. Harrison's privacy and not hurt anyone's life with a photo taken out of context. The next day, Alex deleted the photo from his camera and decided to focus on the positive images he had taken at the event. He hoped that he had made the right choice, even if it meant missing out on a big scoop. News about the event spread quickly, but no one knew about the moment Alex had captured. He felt a little regret at first, wondering if he had made a mistake. His friends told him he should have sold the picture. They reminded him that this was how he could become famous. But Alex remained firm. He knew in his heart that he had made the right decision. Days later, Alex received an unexpected phone call. It was Mr. Harrison himself. The politician asked to meet him in person. Alex was surprised and nervous, but he agreed to meet Mr. Harrison at a nearby cafe. When they met, Mr. Harrison looked serious but calm. He thanked Alex for not publishing the photo. "I know you had a difficult choice," he said. "You could have made a lot of money and gained fame, but you chose not to hurt me or my family. That takes courage." Alex nodded, feeling both relieved and proud. He explained that he wanted to be a photographer who told stories that mattered, not one who ruined lives for profit. Mr. Harrison smiled, appreciating Alex's honesty. Then, to Alex's surprise, Mr. Harrison made him an offer. "I have an exclusive story," he said. "Something much more significant than what was happening that night. I want you to be the one to tell it." The story Mr. Harrison shared was indeed important. It was about a new community project he was starting, one that would help many people in need. He gave Alex all the details and offered him the chance to take photos for the campaign. Alex agreed, and soon he found himself in the middle of a story that was more meaningful than he had ever imagined. He took photos of the project's launch, capturing the joy and hope in people's faces. His photos were published in major newspapers, and his name became known not because of a scandal, but because of the positive impact his work had on the community. But there was another twist. During the project's launch, Alex captured a moment when a young girl performed a dance. Without thinking much, he recorded the performance. When he posted it online, it went viral. The girl's story touched many hearts, and soon Alex found himself invited to different shows to talk about his work and the project. Alex's decision to protect Mr. Harrison's privacy had paid off in ways he could not have imagined. He gained respect not only from Mr. Harrison, but from others in the industry who admired his integrity. He was known as a photographer who cared about people and told stories that mattered. The story he published with Mr. Harrison became widely read, and his viral video brought even more attention to the community project. Alex realized that by choosing to do the right thing, he had found his true path as a photographer. And so, Alex's career flourished, not because he chased after scandals, but because he chose to respect others and tell stories that made a real difference in the world.